thank you very much for attending this memorial event, the NII Shona Meeting 100 Commemorative Symposium. I'm Akiko Aizawa. I'm currently serving as Deputy Director General of NII and also the chairman to this symposium. Now, there is a Japanese subtitle of the symposium. It says 湘南会議が挑んだ100の難問、それは未来への一歩だ。I'll translate it into English. And the English is that the 100 challenges 湘南会議 tackle. It is one step toward the future. And today, I'm pleased to announce that we have the honor of having two invited speakers, acclaimed researchers as keynote speakers. And after the speeches, we will have a panel discussion with our guests. In addition, Mr. Yuji Kuroiwa, the prefecture governor of Kanagawa, who has made great cooperation for Shona meetings, will give us a guest remark soon after he arrives here. This symposium will be about 2 hours, and we would be delighted if you could enjoy the symposium until the end around noon. Then we are opening the symposium now, and the symposium will be started from opening address by our Director General of NII, Dr. Masaru Kitsuegawa, please.
Good morning. In Japan, when the most of the participants is Japanese, we usually speak Japanese. But this time, Ko-sensei asked me to speak English rather than Japanese. However, the title is in Japanese, so there are lots of inconsistency, but I hope you understand. By the way, anyway, thank you very much for coming here for the NII 100th commemorative symposiums. Actually, we are holding, as you can see, the open house of our institute today and tomorrow. So in addition to this symposium, all of you are going around our researchers' demonstrations and the posters and so on and so forth. So by the way, in 2011, Kanagawa Prefecture government signed up the partnership agreement with us and launched the Shonan meeting. That was in actually February, a little bit cold time. Its objective was to design the Shonan Village Center. Shonan Village Center is property of the Kanagawa Prefecture, as you might know very well. And they provide that place for the researchers, for the discussions and information exchange and so on and so forth. Apparently, we are following Dagus Tool model. Today, Professor Raymond Seidel came to here. Thank you very much. And we follow that your models. But we Japanize it. When I met him this morning, my first question is, we are 100. How many have you heard? Then he replied to me, more than 1,000. So it's almost impossible for us to catch up them. But atmosphere in the Dagus tour, and that for the Shonan meeting somehow maybe slightly different. And one of the key features of Shonan is we are able to see the very beautiful Mount Fuji's. That is not unfortunately available in the Dagus tour. So still we are somehow competing, not necessarily competing. We provide different style of the meetings. So it's past around 7 years. So during that time, around 1,000 seminars of Shonan meeting happened October of last year. And so we decided to have this commemorative symposium. Actually, we invite today a professor who organized the first Shonan meeting, actually the really frontier professor from France. So basically, we are really global. And I'd like to show some statistics. During the past 7 years, the number of participants actually around 2,500 people, and the countries covers around 56. So it's really international activities. Shonan meeting drawn strong attentions, of course, nationally and also internationally, to create very important opportunities for the researchers, kind of synergetic activities. One of the distinct features of NII Shonan meeting is a very unique conference style. What does it mean is participants set the topics to discuss in the discipline of the informatics, and then make the direction of the research clear by discussing the kind of the topics very intensively. Actually, such kind of meeting outcomes or results as organized as Shonan meeting reports, and those reports are available meeting website of the NII homepage, and we have so many interesting results over there. Of course, not necessarily just discussing about the topic itself, or those outcomes are actually used by the funding agency. For example, NSF in Americas, or the GST or JSPS in our countries. Of course, there are lots of such kind of funding agency activities each individual countries. Transferring the money cross-border is still not necessarily easy. So maybe the participant has to launch the project in individual countries, but after that we collaborate each other. So that is one of the most, how can I say, effective way for us or for the researchers to do the real collaboration. In addition to the such kind of Shonan meetings, we are also having receiving lots of internship students based on our MOU among the international universities. As far as I remember, the number of MOU is still increasing and reached to more than 100. So every maybe Ko-sensei knows we are receiving more than 100 students per year, 150 or so, something like that. Yeah, there's lots of students actually we are receiving, and one of the interesting statistics for the country of the student is maybe easily you might imagine the number of students from America is the number one, but actually the number of students France is the number one. This is caused by our international liaison officer is coming from France. Okay. Maybe next time we should rotate from region by region or some. We are hoping. Well, but anyway, this is one of the most strongest global activities in our countries. By the way, after my speech, at some time, Kanagawa Prefecture's head, Mr. Kuroiwa, will come to here and give a speech. Kuroiwa-san and I are the classmates of the high school. So he should, or he has to be friendly with us. When I talk to Professor Seidel, Dagsu is now introducing a new building and to enhance the activities. So I want to propose him to enhance the Shonan meeting research meeting place a lot. I'm not sure whether it will be successful or not, because their economic condition is not necessarily so good. But apparently the demand, actually the number of the requests from researchers is increasing. So I think we should try to think about that kind of issue more seriously. And we have lots of things to learn from Dagu's activities. And that is one of the most important things I have to mention to you. So we hope the future of the Shonan meeting is maybe should include more global, as I mentioned, 56 countries, but still there remains another country professors who has never attended Shonan meeting. We solicit their participations and so on and so forth. Nowadays, kind of global friction is becoming more and more evident, but at least academic layers, we should make more tighter friendship, tighter collaboration. That is one of the most important. So I hope Shonan meeting activity contribute those kind of things. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for the opening remarks. For the next program, Professor Zhen Zhang, who has made enormous efforts for Shonan meeting since its beginning, will give an introduction to the Shonan meeting. And actually, the contribution of Professor Hu to Shonan meeting was enormous. And it was originally his idea to launch such a series of meetings in Japan. And Shonan meeting will not be here today without Professor Hu. So please introduce the history and the outline of the Shonan meeting here.
Okay, thank you very much. So, as a steering committee chair, I'm very happy to be here to give a short introduction of Shonan meetings. And I was supposed to give 10 minutes introductions because we want to give more time to our keynote speakers here. So I want to explain this in a brief way. Okay, so it's an overview of Shonan meeting. So as just mentioned, this is a very special year for Shonan. And perhaps because of two things. The first is these articles. I guess some of you have read this. This is in 2011, January 1st. It is written by Professor Vardy. At that time, he was editor-in-chief of communication of ACM. The title is quite interesting. He said, "Where have all the workshops gone?" Okay, so now we know we have many, many conferences. But he argued is that although there are many conferences, there are not so many places actually for experts to meet together to discuss problems for communications. Conferences now becomes a place for people to presenting results. So he said, Dax Zhu actually did this. His contribution to computing research over the past 20 years are incalculable. And this is, he's also mentioned, it's no wonder, okay, so that is quite natural, that National Institute of Informatics, NII, in Japan, recently, at that time recently, created a similar center in Shonan, near Tokyo, okay. So Shonan actually is, we are Tokyo here, there, Tokyo is here, and Shonan just to the south of Tokyo. It is about 50 kilometers from here. Okay, and there's the direct trains actually from two international airports, Haneda Airport and Narita Airport. Good things, as Professor Casteran Sensei just mentioned, we have Mount Fuji. Actually, quite a lot of people enjoy that, okay? Try to get up very early at 5 o'clock in order to see Mount Fuji. Because after that, it not disappeared. It's still there, but hid by the cloud, okay? And it is surrounded by very beautiful sea, okay? Green, and of course, important, isolated. It's isolated but surrounded with green. Okay, so this is a place. Actually, this is a Shonan Village Center. This is not cloud. This is a Mount Fuji, I guess. And actually, there's all green, and there's small mountains that people come here want to have exercise there. So, Shonan meetings as organized by NI, but have a very great support from Shonan Village Center and Kanagawa Prefecture, the local government. Okay, so let me just explain a little bit things about the features. It is first, Dax Zhu likes things, but I think, let me just explain that. So currently, we expect to have 15 to 25 meetings per year, okay? The 4 features is this. It's invitation-based. You cannot attend it without invitation. And only active researchers, top researchers or experts will be invited. So we reject some participants say, I really like to go there to learn something. Learning is not proper to attend, it's not an excuse, okay? So we reject many people's students, okay? But if you are very active, you can contribute, then you are invited. And it is quite small scale. Compared with the Dax Zhu, it has less people. We want to have more intensive discussions by more smaller people. And intensive, 4 days, okay? This is a bit different. We shorten the days. Dax Zhu have 5 days. We shorten 1 day because we think it's important to have another 1 day for people to communicate with local researchers. Friday, go to other universities, other researchers to meet people. With the Dax Zhu finishing Friday, then Sunday and Saturday can only have sightseeing. Difficult to bother other researchers. So this is what we try to shorten a little bit. So it's a little bit different, but basically follow the same style. So this is quite simple. Basically, not for presenting the results, rather than for research communications, for discussing the problems, for discussing the vision, rather than discussing, present, show off your results. Okay, so this is the basic features of that. So we successfully have the first湘南meetings, and actually this is in 2011, February 13 to 18. Okay, this is organized by Professor Iwata. At that time, he was in Kyoto University, and now he is in Tokyo University, and Kenichi, who is standing outside, actually, and organized a very successful湘南meetings. Although the trial one actually was held 10 years ago in 2008, and but this is really a nice successful. So after 6 years, so this comes to the dates that Professor Casteran just mentioned, October 3 to 5, it is a 100th湘南meetings. So today is a late celebrations of that events. Actually, today we have had 124 湘南meetings, and from next Monday, actually participants are coming, we will have 125th湘南meeting. So this is the pictures. I like it because it looks like it will go expand more. This cloud shows expansion of the meeting. It looks very nice. So actually behind this is Mount Fuji. So I always ask people to little bit lower the positions. But the mountain, yeah, it cannot be seen here. But this is 100. And so let's give you some brief overview of the meetings, okay? So far, as just mentioned, we have 124 湘南meetings. And actually, if you go to湘南, you will see many these panels, including one pictures and the messages from the participants there. Actually, we have no space for more, so currently we try to shrink them. Okay, so we want to find a way to how to do that, because the wall is full of these panels now. And we have 2,666 okay, participants, and from 56 countries. And in addition to the meetings, we have a school. Okay, so Professor Pierre actually organized the first湘南school. We think it is important to have small class of school. So currently there are many schools, 100 students, 200 students, but we want to have a small class. So have more interactions between professors and students. Students certainly will be strictly selected to make the whole things interesting. So it is also, we only accept 30 students, and with about 5 to 6 lectures, just to stay together, interactive together. That is, I think it was very successful. So actually, this is a meeting rooms. If you go there, you will find it's a nice facilities. And this is actually follow Professor Casteran's suggestions, have all the walls that you can write everything. Our direct general rooms actually have all the wall you can write anywhere. So this is all these walls is writable, is a place you can write, you can discuss. Okay. And in addition to these湘南meetings, we have had 7 湘南symposium. In addition to this symposium, this is called memorial. This symposiums is every year we choose one interesting topic to explain to the wide audience. It is also held in湘南. So every time it's more than 100, usually more than 100 participants. Okay, we have that. So we also need to give more impact about湘南meeting, because participants only 30, we could have more. We actually summarize all the things in the questions and visions in technical report. And about 2 years ago, working with Springer, we actually have communications of NII湘南meetings, and we publish books. These books is not proceedings, okay? Complete different proceedings. It is about the problems, what are the basic surveys, tutorials, and the visions, okay? But written by the participants of the meeting. Okay, so later I will explain more about that. So we provide atmosphere, that means a place for people to communication. Well, this is for drinking beer, but there's still other places for drinking teas and discussions, coffee, okay? So nice things is, so far, it keeps a satisfactory rate about 95, and recently it's 96. So this is, people feel quite satisfactory about the湘南meetings. So it is actually cover all the topics, okay? So this is, I use word graph. I copied all the titles for the past 100 meetings, and automatically generated this one. You can see we discussed the theory, systems, engineering, about data, about software, about optimization of computational mechanism, every aspects of informatics. And this shows the times of the meetings. So, well, start, this is 2000, so February in Japan, it is for fiscal year in 2010, okay? So that's why we have one here. But actually, you see, it's go up. And last year, we have 26 meetings, almost twice, every 2 weeks, we have one湘南meetings. And this is a number of participants and going up, okay? And look about region, okay? So we have 56 countries, participants from these countries, and basically about 40% from Asia, okay? About 30% from Europe, about 20% from America, and other 5% from somewhere else. And it looks like this. So I think it's very good balanced with all the things. And I think perhaps later, Professor Seidel will show the region distributions of about DAX tools, some things. This is so this is湘南meetings. Really, if you want to know what's the current hot problem, what is the visions, I really encourage you to take a look about these technical reports, which is online. You can access it through website. And these are books. We have published several books now. And the purpose is that we want to publish things which in between proceedings and textbook. Because the vision, it is not matured enough to becomes a textbook. But we want our graduate students, all the researchers who want to know something about this, can see this. Actually, this is several books we have published. Actually, the books published starts 2016. And also, we have these湘南challenges. So Professor Kameyama is there from Tsukuba. Actually, this is one of them. I got it. So he actually organized湘南meetings and make a directory and make some websites for people to continue discussing the challenges of the湘南. Okay. And we are very happy to get a lot of greetings, messages from the participants. Of course, a lot of advice or suggestions. So we keep improving our湘南meetings to make it becomes a nice place for people to gather. And as I said, and recently for 100 years anniversary, we go another questionnaire again. And it is people really satisfy that and ask them whether you will be interested to be organizers of these meetings. And 155 persons say, yes, I would like. So this is a really good encouragement for us. Okay. So, so this is summary. I think湘南meetings actually start from 0th湘南meeting. It is now 10 years. And we have preparations from 2 to 3 years for preparation. And the first one was held in 2001. And Kenichi actually organized this successful one. Actually, not everything is so simple. And if you really do that, you will find湘南meeting is not go in a smooth way. So actually, after the first meeting, suddenly we have a Japanese earthquake. And then the things is that there's many rumors, radiations, all the things. How we should keep the湘南meetings, how we should do. We only use half a year to make it resumed. So this is a complete, you need to organize all the things because of accommodations, all these things need to be done. But the second one was held in September. So I think, but not so easy. So there is a lot of difficulties in order to come to today. So this is just show one thing. So for the first 3 years, we want to get on track. And 2014 to 18, we keep it stable. So all the things can be done in a more efficient way. And I think most important things is from now on, what is the next step for that? And we will have a panel discussions later about what about the futures of湘南meetings. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Hu. Now, next program, we are very much pleased to welcome two invited keynote speakers. First, we'd like to introduce Professor Raymond Seidel at Southern University. As a researcher, Professor Seidel is famous for his researches in computational geometry, and in the scientific community, he's known as a scientific director of Schloss Dagstuhl. And the title of his keynote speech is not shown on the slide, but how Dagstuhl meetings have changed and remain the same over the years. So please prepare.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me here, for inviting me. It's a great honor to be part of this event. So I've been director of Dagstuhl for 4 years or so, but as you'll see pretty soon, I've been involved in some way or another much longer. So the title for the talk is how Dagstuhl meetings have changed and remained the same over the years. And the years are something 25, 28. But when I started preparing the talk, I quickly discovered that it's not quite the correct title. It's more how Dagstuhl itself and everything around it has changed. Meetings are part of this. So I'll be more talking about this. You've seen this picture before. This is a somewhat unusual view of Schloss Dagstuhl, all somehow downwards, but no Mount Fuji in the back. Although it turns out that Dagstuhl is on the border of a volcanic active area, so something is similar after all. Okay, so this is Schloss Dagstuhl, I believe, in the 1920s. Okay, and yeah, I have to do it this way, right? Yeah, it used to be, at least at this point, it was a small monastery, so there were nuns there. But this didn't stay like this forever, and in 1989, some colleagues in Germany got active, just as Professor Hu did here, and wanted to create some meeting center for informatics. There was something like this for mathematics around called Oberwolfach, and they wanted to copy this. Founded this international meeting center for informatics. It was called IPFI initially. And they were looking for a place and eventually found this Dagstuhl Castle, and so eventually it got this name Dagstuhl associated with. But before this even happened, there was a mission. And here's the official statement of the mission from the original document. There were actually 4 parts to it: to promote basic and application-oriented research in the field of informatics, to support advanced scientific vocational training and to further education in the field of informatics, to promote the transfer of knowledge between research and into informatics, and finally to operate an international forum and research institute for informatics. So this is all long ago. I don't know why all those mission points came along. Somehow in the end, this one was the really important one. And as far as I'm concerned, oh yeah, so I got things backwards. Fine, so Schloss Dagstuhl was acquired, became Schloss Dagstuhl, and we had the first 4 meetings in 1990. Okay. So here are the first 4 meetings, and so the topics still look quite familiar. Actually, there was algorithmic geometry. As it happened. I was part of the fourth meeting. Here's the list of participants. I'm the fourth from the bottom. At that time, I was still in California. And since we talked about internationality, here's the breakup. About half, the total was 28, half were from Germany, a quarter from North America, and the rest from Europe, from Israel, nobody from East Asia. To the current situation, so here you see seminar participants by geographic distribution over the last 6 or 7 years. It's fairly constant. It's Germany now only about a quarter. It's about a third from the rest of Europe, a quarter from North America. The Asian part is relatively small, so it's have Shonan because I mean you want meetings, you want to be able to attend meetings. So I think Shonan is perfect. It's good. Okay, so here is actually the distribution. You asked for it. There it is. Currently, I looked it up explicitly. We have somewhere between 50 and 60 Japanese visitors per year. So this is about a little more than one per week. And when was the first Japanese visitor in Dagstuhl? Anybody? So you won't believe it. It was actually the second meeting. So this is pretty good, I think. Okay. So here I pulled out something from the report, the very first meeting. Let me skip the first paragraphs. Actually, the first two meetings didn't take place in the cast because it wasn't ready yet. Okay, so the first paragraph is about this. And then we get some interesting sentences. The remote location and the apparently, but not really absent organization of the meeting in the style of Oberwolfach. Oberwolfach is a mathematics place. Was a new experience for some participants, but everyone quickly learned to enjoy this. The meeting was held in a relaxed atmosphere with plenty of time after talks. This time was filled with extraordinarily lively discussions which went across the boundaries of the three invited fractions. Stimulating this discussion was, of course, the main purpose of the meeting. Okay, stimulating discussion. So let me point out some of the important points. Remote location. I'll talk about this a little more later. Apparently, but not really absent organization. So you have a lot of freedom how to organize this meeting. Oberwolfach, that's really our ancestor, so to speak. They started all this in mathematics. There's a relaxed atmosphere, plenty of time to discuss. They're not just talks. It's across boundaries. You try to get not all from the same area, maybe from different areas, from different fractions. And finally, stimulating the discussion was, of course, the main purpose of the meeting. So those are not about telling about results, it's about generating discussions. And so accordingly, when I look at this mission of Dagstuhl, and I read it just like this. We want to facilitate, so which means make possible, communication between and with computer scientists. So this with is important because sometimes we have meetings that involve areas other than computer science. So we've had, let's say, a meeting on paleography. Paleography is kind of the science of dealing with old writings. Maybe in a script that you don't know, there are a lot of interesting informatic-related problems there, and so there was a joint meeting between historians and computer scientists. But there always has to be computer science involvement in our meetings. Okay, so facilitating communication is kind of the important thing. So here are a couple of things that are good or that make communication easier or better. First thing is remoteness. the place must be a bit hard to get to. Why? Because this also means it's hard to get away from. If you had Shonan in Tokyo, you would have people coming here, attend the first half of the day, and then spend another half day giving a talk at University X, and then come back or not. But if this is a little remote, then people go and then they stay. They don't expect to do anything else. And I think the policy of having Friday free is actually very good. The second one, don't make the rooms too attractive. Because if you do this, then people are going to spend their time in the rooms and not discuss. They're all busy people, have other things to do. So here's a picture of one of our rooms. It's not very fancy. So there's no TV, no comfortable armchair, things like this. No connection to the internet. Wow, this was true initially. This is not true anymore. As a matter of fact, internet is a blessing and a curse because it's very distractive, and on the one hand, it's wonderful that you can do anything at any place, but this is also a curse that you can do this anything at any place. Okay. If we want to facilitate communication, we won't need to provide common places. So let's see. So initially, so this is something that has changed. Initially, rooms with computers in terminal, this was in the early 90s. So not that many people had laptops. There was no wireless LAN and things like this. But actually, those places were places where people met because you would sit there and then somebody else comes and you start talking. And so this was important. Okay, you can play some pool and you start talking. Or Professor Hu just told me, or told us, now we have a ping pong table, now we have a ping pong table and other things. You can do this. And then, of course, well, how do you communicate? How do people communicate when they eat? So eating, we have our own facilities, our own kitchen. Part of the deal that we learned from Oberwolfach was that there actually is a sitting order for lunch and dinner, but the sitting order is random, so it's prescribed. So you and the friends cannot just always crowd up together and, no, you're supposed to meet somebody else. You want to facilitate communication, so this is an important part. We have our own kitchen, and we think it's important to have everything in the place, because otherwise, if somebody goes to this restaurant and somebody else goes to some other restaurant, then you're losing connectivity, you're losing the community. And then, well, frequently there is a beverage. It's a famous quote by Woody Allen. Okay, so there is a wine cellar. Actually, there are several places, and wine and beer and beverages are available. So here's other beverages. And so there are now actually some things that have changed where you learn. Like initially, there were 4 different ways how you should pay for the beverages. Now there's only one, because if there are 4, then people get confused and bad things happen. So now there's only one way you write it down and pay in the end. Coffee was introduced, so coffee is very important. There's a quote by a Hungarian mathematician, I think computer scientists are mathematicians. A mathematician is a machine that turns coffee into theorems. Pardon me? It's attributed to Paul Ehrlich, but I recently learned it was actually somebody else. Yes. Anyway, so coffee is for free, and the machine runs all day, so you can go there anytime. And it wasn't there initially. Actually, my predecessor had reservations. He didn't want to do it. In the end, he succumbed, and I think it's one of the most important places. So this is where people meet. Say, let's meet at the coffee machine. Everybody knows where that is. Okay, then you want the people to open up. So things like they should be able to do, well, athletics is one thing, but music is another. Actually, there's a surprising number of really accomplished musicians among our colleagues. So this plays Kitzibut, so there are 2 violins, cello, the guitar, so there's a lot of sheet music. So you can make music there. Sometimes seminars actually organize little concerts. Sometimes the music is used as part of the seminar because it's about music or informatics for music. And then, of course, it's wonderful to have humor. My predecessor had some table for arts. So we have, by now, a reasonably small but interesting art collection, but we do have, we use one of our buildings as an exhibition space. So we have 4 exhibitions per year where some artists show their work. So that just hangs there, people can talk about it and so on. Okay, so this is now all very non-scientific. Of course, you need lots of lecture halls and small meeting rooms. Actually, the small meeting rooms become more and more important because many meetings organize themselves in a way they have some plenary session, and then they have so-called breakout sessions where there are 5, 6, 7 groups that start smaller discussions, and then they come back together and report on this. And for those small discussions, you need lots of small rooms. Unfortunately, we have lots of small rooms. Okay, so this was how the thing looked like in the year 2000. This was the old castle. This was built in the early 90s, so with 30 additional rooms. Maybe I can use this. And in the middle, there was a library tower and also the lecture hall, several lecture halls. Okay, so you get some different impression. And meanwhile, we have added 1 more building with 8 more rooms, but that's actually, this addition increased our capacity a little bit, but was not really a major change. Okay, but administratively, the really major change happened in the early 2000s when we became a member of the Leibniz Association and actually then changed our name to Schloss Darmstadt, Leibniz Zentrum für Informatik. So Schloss Darmstadt, Leibniz Center for Informatics. It was really careful to notice that this became 2 S's. It was a different, strange German S before. This was part of German spelling reform. Okay, not really important here, but interesting. Here we go. So just a short explanation. In Germany, there are, on one hand, there are universities, they're publicly funded. And then there are 4 major science organizations. One is the Max Planck Society, and I'm sure you've heard of them. Another one is Fraunhofer. I'm sure most of you have heard about that. They're much more applied. Max Planck is very theoretical, typically. There's the Helmholtz Association, which is a small number of institutes, but they are very large, like run, particle accelerators, so they're really big. And then the Leibniz Association, which is kind of a potpourri of many different things, and Oberwolfach and Darmstadt are part of that. But there are institutes on astrophysics and institutes on school books, so it's a very broad spectrum. Okay, so we became part of this, and this is actually a big advantage. For one thing, the funding situation became more stable. Not necessarily, there wasn't necessarily more funds, but it became very stable. Basically, if you're part of a huge conglomerate, and the conglomerate does the negotiation for you, you're in a much better position, okay? And it's also much more difficult for politicians to change this haphazardly because this is kind of a long-range plan. It's interesting to be connected to kind of the rest of science and the scientific establishment. because then you get to talk about the astrophysicists or school book researchers. That's, I think it's interesting because computer science kind of radiates to everything. I don't have to do any political fighting anymore. Somebody else does it for me. And then there is a codified evaluation procedure. So every 7 years, that's for every institute in the Blindness Association, there's a scientific evaluation. And if this works out well, then you are guaranteed funding for another 7 years. So this is, of course, wonderful stability. Moreover, it's possible that you even get more funding. Okay. So other positive things, well, when you prepare for the evaluation, it's a big formal evaluation. Then you spend a lot of time, for one thing, collecting data, thinking about what you're doing, maybe adjusting plans. You also tend to get good advice. Most evaluation committees are actually benevolent in some way. They're not, they don't want to turn you down or something like that. That's not their intent. But yeah, so for financing this up. So this is good, has been a big change. We had an evaluation around 2 years ago, which went extremely well. Actually, I have to say thank you to Shonan, because just imagine what nice position you are if you can write into your report. Well, Dagstuhl in computer science is not a household name. There are places that call themselves Dagstuhl-like. You know, it's like being Xerox. And Xeroxing has become a word, a verb. So this was wonderful. Thank you. This helped us. Okay. So this was a big administrative change. Now, a little bit about changes in the entire process. So in the 1990s, from what I hear, the selection process for seminars was interesting. Let's put it this way. So this is how you can make a proposal for a seminar, and then this gets evaluated, and some decision is made whether your proposal is turned into a seminar or not. And apparently in the 1990s, there was a committee that met, and apparently with not much preparation tried to reach a decision, and meetings without preparation turn out to be long and tedious. So this has changed completely. I mean, it's now just as you would submit a paper to the conference, there's a whole submission system, and there are referees, and everything is organized, and there are reports, and the whole committee can look at this at first, but we still meet in person in Dagstuhl to make the final discussion and reach decisions. But preparation is wonderful, and we have staff to do this, to help with the preparation. So this is really very different from 20 years ago. So this is something that has changed. Part of, or if you have scientific staff, then somehow the preparation or support for meetings can become very different. So for one thing, it's easier to pass on experiences that other seminars have made, what works, what doesn't work. So if you get questions from organizers, you can deal much better with them, but you can give general advice. Every meeting is visited by one of our staff members who is actually dedicated to that meeting. So then he gives advice there, or actually also see what's going on. Sometimes things don't work that well. That also happens. And then they also help in creating the report afterwards to see that all this happens. So this is a big change. And so we have, as it turns out, 3.5 staff members just dedicated to the support for seminars. Okay, Michael Wagner is only half in that, but that's okay. So one big thing least in Germany, is gender balance. In this first list of participants, 28 people, there were exactly 28 men. Okay, so this was quite one-sided, and wants to change this. And there are actually things that you can do, and that organizations should do to help that this comes about. So we are looking at the list of invitees and making suggestions. And how come you have only one woman on this list? This doesn't seem to make sense here. There are some areas where it's very difficult. So we don't have fixed rules, but sometimes you look a little bit more. It's important to have women organizers because it helps role models and so on. For a number of years, we have offered childcare on the premises. So it's actually the same for my notes. If somebody wants to bring their young children along, it's now easy to do. And then we are going to efforts to make women feel more comfortable at Dagstuhl. So there was this kind of hashtag #MeToo discussion, or this is still going on. And someone did computer science also and did Dagstuhl also in some way. We have this kind of tradition that the doors to the rooms are not lockable from outside. So when you leave your room, the door is unlocked. That's not comfortable for everybody. And we're going to change that. The moral of the story really is that in a place like Dagstuhl, we break down the personal barriers, make everybody communicate. Some people start feeling uncomfortable with this. That's something we didn't really think about, but this actually happens. So one has to be a little careful and find the right balance of how things can work, so that it doesn't get too close, or was one person too close and the other not. So it's a little difficult. We'll take a little bit of work, but something that we have to worry about. This is, okay, here is some statistics on how we're doing with respect to gender. So this is slowly rising, so around, we'll be hitting 20% soon, which is a good number, but it's constant. Okay, now there are two actually big things for Dagstuhl, but not so important in this context here. Besides the seminar business, there are two other things that we have started. One is open access publishing. So we think that the publication system, at least in science, is in some sense broken, where the monopolists make things extremely expensive, and somehow it's all, in my opinion, really a kind of, it's a public subsidy for large publishing companies. And in order to steer against it, we started a small program to allow open access publishing. Okay. The second one is more important. There's DPLP, computer science bibliography, which was started at the University of Trier, which happens to be close by, which is extremely popular for computer scientists, but also administrators, because it gives a very easy way of kind of seeing the output of a computer scientist. To give you an idea, it's now has 4 million entries, growing by about 10% every year, so it's growing very quickly. We have 500,000 distinct users per month. At every point in time, there are about 4 active queries per second. Okay, so this system is used heavily. This is where the evaluation came in very handy, because they recommended that this be supported, and the result of this evaluation and some other decisions, starting in 2019, will actually receive substantial additional funds to support, to run DPLP completely and expand it and have this on a permanent basis, so with less worrying every year, all the finances. Okay, what is my biggest headache? You won't believe it. This is my biggest headache. It's the library. So when Darkschule was started, there was quite a bit of money spent on acquiring a really good computer science library. And this was a really drawing point initially when well-stocked libraries were not that common, so people came to the library, so to speak. By now, everything is on the net, so to speak. So some things are still interesting. The book collection is interesting, but the journals, it's not interesting anymore. And before long, this will become a museum. But you don't want to run this as a museum. And actually, if I go back to this aerial picture, here's the entire central architectural unit that is sitting there and has no use anymore. I don't know what to do with it. So this is a real headache. So, so you're very lucky. That's a ticket that you don't have. So I hope you will not have many headaches. Congratulations on the first 100 seminars. I wish you another 156 at least to reach kind of the more computer science jubilee. So, of course, I have some present for you. Yes, so this is very special Austrian chocolate. One says happy birthday. And the other one, so I really wish I could bring you permanent funding, which of course I cannot do. So, but there is another chocolate called First Aid. So for little headaches, this may be helpful.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So if you have questions, no question.
Library. Actually, you have been hearing about that. Actually, many people currently go there not to read book. They want to sign on the book.
Yes.
Yes, because you put a lot of books there, and many people publish the book and want to go there just to sign on that.
And I always tell my students, it's important that more people read what they write.
Thank you very much, Professor Seidel. And at the end of the symposium, we have some more time for questions and comments. So if you have any additional questions, please wait for the end of the question time after the panel. The next keynote speaker is Professor Pierre Casteran at the University of Bordeaux, who is one of the very famous as one of the developers of the Coq assistance system and received the ACM Software System Award. The title of the keynote speech is the Coq Assistant Principles, Examples, and Main Application.
Thank you very much. Okay, good morning, and thank you very much for your invitation. Okay, so first of all, I had the pleasure to co-organize the first Shonan School on 2014 with the help of Jack Garrigue and David Nowak. And it was about a proof assistant. So I will present in this talk some aspects of this kind of software. And okay, so I want to be too technical, and I want only to comment on some aspects of the use of this kind of software. Okay, so first of all, I will speak about the possible application of proof assistance. Then, what is the nature of this kind of software? And the main question will be, should we trust some programs that have been certified with this kind of tool? And then, if I sometimes some practical aspects on the use of Coq. So first of all, we have two kinds of application, one in computer science and one in math. So in computer science is because critical software is everywhere, transportation, health, cryptography, etc. Second application, that programming language need safe compilers and static analyzers because they can introduce bugs in the running programs. Third point, that you cannot cover all the needs with only finitist methods that like test and model checking. Okay, so if only because the number of possible data is infinite and you cannot cover all the possibilities only with automatic methods. And the final point is that due to the classical indecidability results, we all know that the verification of a program cannot be fully automatic. So we need some interactivity, and this is the reason of existence of interactive proof assistance. So the example of some applications, the most basic one is to prove the correctness of functional programs, because it was the first kind of application of proof assistance. Either you have a given program and you want to check to prove that it is correct, or you have a specification, you prove that the specification is realizable, and then from that proof you give a runnable program. So you have two directions for using it. And if you we come back to the mainstream programming language like C, Java, or something like that, you have a lot of application. First, you have a first C, certified C compiler, which is ComCert, which was proved in Coq. There is now a tool for static analysis of C programs, for instance, that you will not have running problems with pointers. So it can be certified using tools like Coq. And you can also prove the correctness of C or Java programs. You had some specification and annotation in the programs, and you want to have a formal proof that the program will be correct. I will comment on that a little later. And more generally, you can validate some program transformation and composition schemes. Or what I will comment next Tuesday, impossibility proof. For instance, in distributed computing, you can prove that if some conditions are not fulfilled, it's impossible, for instance, to have the election of a leader in a network or something like that. Okay, so this is the main applications I see in computer science. And also, we have now a lot of application in mathematics. Why? Because there are now some very, very big proofs. One what proved with Coq system is a four-color theorem that is proving that in order to colorate some planar graph, you can do it with only four colors. And the first real proof was done with a team of Coq users. The proof is huge. You have to check for more than 600 possible counterexamples of this conjecture and check that all the counterexamples are fake, that is, there are no real counterexamples. So you cannot read and write the full proof main being. And you have also other big proofs. One was done with Isabelle and Hall, which was the Kepler proof of the Kepler conjecture. And the last success was by the Coq team of Fake-Thompson theorem on enumeration of finite groups. So you have now a new generation of big proofs, and you need the computer for being sure that the theorems are correct. Okay. And another interest of using proof assistant for doing math is that some proof, not that they are too huge, they are complex and counterintuitive, and so for trusting some theorem, it's better to have a certificate from your computer. In the talk of next Tuesday, I will talk about the Hydra game, which is a deep proof, and if you have not the computer, you can think that the theorem is false, but it's true. Okay, so these are the main use of computers for doing either computer science or some kind of mathematics. Okay, so the definition, what is a proof assistant? A proof assistant can be an adversary and a friend. Okay, because the proof assistant checks that all the proof you are building are correct. You cannot use badly logical rule because it will fail. So this tool verifies that all that you are writing is correct. But the good part of a proof assistant is that it helps you to write the proof. I talked about huge proof. You don't have to type them on your computer. So you have both functionalities. There are now a big family of proof assistants. I put LCF was the first one by Robin Milner. And you have now Coq, Isabelle, HOL, PVS, XL2, etc. So they are all different because first of the logic they implement. Some use classical logic, other intuitionistic logic, and so on. And they have certain proof assistants like Agda are very clever, but they have a small library and make them less easy to use. But they are all different, but people of all these software communicate, and there is some progress in all the proof assistants. So now I will talk about the only one that I know the best. It's a Coq proof assistant. But many things I will say are also correct with Agda or something like that. Okay. So first thing is the notion of assistant. That is, since proofs can be very long, then you don't ask the user to type all the proof. Okay, sorry. In fact, the user writes what we call proof scripts, that is data that is used for generate the whole proof in the computer. Okay, so the scripts are composed of tactics. A tactic is perform on an induction of this number or on this list or binary tree, or do a proof by case, or apply some given theorem in the library. So you give order to the proof assistant and it performs the task you give it. The tactics can also be written by the user in a functional language like OCaml or in Coq itself. Okay, and you have also some tools that help the user to find which theorem apply in a given situation. So by interrogation of some database. Okay, I gave to NII some scripts that you will be able to download and look at some examples. Okay. So the main question is, let's assume that some guy said, okay, my software is proved with Coq. Do I have to trust him? Okay, is a theorem or a program proved with Coq trustable or not? And why is it trustable? So the first answer was given by the SCM Software System Award in 3 or 4 years ago, that says that, okay, Coq is one of best software for certifying software. Okay, and it's used both for mathematical theorems and software specification alike. So the question is now, how do I interpret the fact that some software or theorem is proved with this assistant? And we must have some reflection on the trust we have in this tool. Okay. So first of all, we have to analyze what is Coq and what is made of. First of all, the history of Coq was a PhD thesis of Thierry Coquin, and he defined some formalism called the calculus of constructions. So the first name of Coq comes from COC. And Christine Paulin-Morin enriched this system with the calculus of inductive constructions, which is now the underlying formalism of the system. So it's what we call a tight lambda calculus, which is powerful enough for representing the usual types of programming language, integer, trees, lists, arrays, and so on, and also program specifications and mathematical statements and proof of theorem. Okay, I will give you some small examples. And, technically speaking, the CIC allows to write polymorphic constructions. For example, the sort of sorting any kind of data, order functions, and dependency type functions, that is, functions that meet some specification. Dependency type programming is a very interesting area of research. Okay, so okay, sorry. Okay, so some examples to show you what kind of data we manipulate. For example, you can define the type of list whose elements are of some type A. Okay, this is a kind of basic construction of Coq. You can also have dependent types, that is a mix of data and proof. If I want to have the type of prime number, which doesn't exist in mainstream programming language, I will say that such an object is an integer and a proof that he has only two divisors. Okay? And you can also have polymorphic objects. For instance, the type of the append function says that you can first consider any type A, and then two lists of type A, and it returns a list of the same type. Or you can also express logical rules. For instance, here, the rule that says that the negation of an existential quantifier is a universal quantifier. So it's extremely powerful because you can express a lot of things. Okay, and you can also write functions. For example, this is a function that appends two lists of a given type A. It's a simple recursive function. And you can also have some expressions, I won't give you the details, but whose type is a theorem. That is the main characteristic of Coq with respect to the other proof assistants, is that all the proofs are stored in your computer under the form of functions. So for verifying that this rule is correct, Coq has only to check the type of this term, and the type is this logical rule. Okay. So the main components of Coq are what we call a critical kernel, that is a part of Coq that, if it's bugged, make all the theorems and program possibly false. So this is the only part that you have to check and verify for trusting all the software. And besides the kernel, you have the implementation of all the tactics, like proof by induction and so on. What important thing is that it's not critical. That in Coq, we can have bugs in the construction of proofs because Coq checks all the whole proof after it's built. So you don't have to trust the second part. And you have standard library on properties of arithmetics, usual data types, and so on, which is also trusted because it's built when you install the Coq on your computer. So when you compile Coq, it proves some properties of functions, that addition is associative and so on. And you trust that because it's the kernel who has proved and built all the standard library. Okay? So if you are the user of a development in Coq and you need to trust this development, you only have to check if the definitions are correct. And you don't have to look at the details of the proof. For example, the proof I will show next Tuesday is 30,000 lines, but you don't have to read them for trusting the result. Okay? Okay, so when you are the user who wants to trust this software, you have to know that Coq is based on logical rules that, for instance, these are two of the set of logical rules that define the Coq proof assistant. So, as a user, if you don't want to read all these rules, you have to trust the people who have written papers in conference or books or PhD thesis for trusting all these things. Okay? Though you don't have to learn by heart all these rules because many examples are already shown in books, tutorials, and but for trusting the Coq proof assistant and all the developments you make with it, you have to know that it's based on such logical rules. Okay, so for summarizing what these data is, if I consider a huge formal proof in Coq, either of a program or a theorem, so if I have to accept the result, I don't have to read the proof, I just trust the critical kernel of Coq and look at the definition of what is proved. If the tactics are bugged, there is no problem. Because if a tactic in Coq is bugged, you will fail to prove a theorem, but the major risk is to believe that no theorem is true. Okay? And if I consider other proof assistants, they offer the same level of safety, but with other means. Okay, so if you want to write a development in Coq and make it trustable, what do you have to do? First, avoid the use of actions, because actions are something that you didn't have proved, so they may be inconsistent. So as users of Coq, we avoid axioms and only use a set of actions that are theoretically studied and presented in Coq documentation, and avoid any other kind of axiom. And second advice, you have to make your definition understandable by other people. For instance, in the proof of the four-color theorems, Gontier, Werner used clever data types, but in the documentation they prove that what they call planar map is exactly what people in discrete maths call a planar map. If not, it's no use. Okay? So now just about how we use this system in the real life. So the most easy part is to prove functional programs, because Coq is already a functional programming language. So the normal way of use it is to use the specification language of Coq and write some functions with one restriction, that is that Coq accepts only functions who terminate, okay, and without side effect. And once you have given this definition, you prove some properties of this function. For example, you have defined the reverse of a list, and an important property that the reverse of a list is a list itself. So you have to prove some lemmas like that. And then you infer from all the technical lemmas that the function meets the specification you have in mind. Okay? I have some examples which will be available. Is mainly the proof, complete proof of the insertion sort on list. Okay. Another that is most interesting is not to start from the program and prove it's correct, but start from the specification and derive a correct program. So it's program synthesis. So in Coq, you can write specifications. For example, in a sort, you define the notion of permutation or ordering on a list, and you say, okay, my specification of a sort is that the result L prime is a sorted permutation of the data. And you can, then you give a constructive proof that for any input L, there exists a possible result L prime which meets the specification. And then Coq has a tool which is called extraction, that is a transformation of your proof into a functional program that you can compile and execute in language like Haskell or OCaml. Okay, so, and this technique is the technique that was used to obtain the concept that is certified C compiler. It was defined by a specific that the compiler must respect the semantics of the C language, even in the optimization phase. And then from the proof of possibility, Coq derived a program in OCaml which was able to compile C files. Okay. I have some time. 5 minutes? Okay, thank you. So another kind of activity is the software of the wise tree family. That is, you take some program in C or Java, and instead of the comments, you put annotations, which corresponds to pre and post condition, loop invariants, and variants. Okay, and then the softwares like Pharmacy and Krakatoa for Java generate a lot of theorem statements which are called verification conditions. And if you prove all these verification conditions, your program is supposed to be correct. That means all the annotations are really true when you run the software. Okay, so in White-Ra, Pharmacy, and so on, once the verification conditions are generated, you try to prove them in automatic theorem prover like SMT solver and so on. And if you have some verification conditions you could not prove, try to do it with a proof assistant. So if you consider how we use Coq in such an activity, Coq can be used to solve the most complex verification conditions that you couldn't prove by an automatic solver. And then at the meta level, the generator of verification condition must be proved because you have to prove that if all the verification conditions are valid, then all your annotations are correct. So we use a system like Coq at two levels. Object level, if you have some complex verification condition to verify, and at the meta level for ensuring the all correctness of the software. Okay, so just comments now on who is working with proof assistant like Coq. You have the team which maintains and documents the software. Okay. Then you have researchers in type theory and foundation of mathematics. And you have contributors to proofers, library, plugins, book, and so on. And people who use Coq, that is every person who needs a formal proof that cannot be proved by an automatic theorem prover. So it has to be proved by an interactive tool. A researcher who want to guarantee the correctness of a new algorithm or a complex theorem. Now, when people want to publish algorithm, you can give a proof with a proof assistant that your algorithm is really correct. Okay. And if you are the referee and you receive an article to read, you can say, okay, I don't know whether the proof is correct, but if the author gives me a proof of Coq, I can say that the theorem is correct. Maybe it's interesting or not, but it will be correct. Okay. Alors just for finishing, I won't lie to you, Coq is quite complex to use. If you have a look at the reference manual, it is 500 pages long. But when you are learning Coq, you are able to, after a week, to write simple proofs. And then if you have some project, you will learn and taking the time to do that. So the complexity is not a problem. You have just to begin and okay. Okay, and so about the documentation, you have many tutorials that you can get on the Coq page. You have several books. Now we have 4 books on Coq. You have some mailing list on Coq Club and Stack Overflow where you can ask questions, and some school and Shonan school are organized. And I want to thank the Tsukuba Coq users group because they printed a lot of booklets of interesting proof pairs in Japanese. Yes, in Japanese. Okay, so I think, okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you very much, Professor Casteran. And now we are going to have some question time after the panel. And next it's time to start the panel discussion. So please for every panelist, please come up to the front. And the title of the panel discussion is What should NII Shonan meetings be in next 10 years? And we would like Professor Raymond Seidel and Professor Pierre Casteran to join the discussion. From NII, Professor Kenichi Kawarabayashi, Chair of Academic Committee of Shonan Meeting, also joins it as a panelist. And Professor Jin Jiang, who serves as a coordinator.
Okay, while waiting, thank you very much for all that is still staying here to the last panel sessions. So wait a minute. I think. Okay, so this is a panel sessions. I'm happy to coordinate this panel discussion. The topic: what should NI Shonan meeting be in next 10 years? Or what is the future of NI Shonan meetings? Okay, so I think that if I use one word to say what Shonan meetings we would like to do is want to attract best people to come to the best place to discuss the best problems. Okay, this is I always say 3B. That is the goal we want to provide. So we come to the first stage, 10 years, and consider about Doug Stewart's from 1990. So we are actually very young. So I found there is a lot of progress and a lot of things after 1992 and 2000, just not say a lot of things. And we'd like to see what we should do to make it becomes really best place. So today is our honor to have three panelists, Professor Seidel, and Professor Casteran, and Professor Kawarabayashi. So let me give them simple introductions of these three. Okay, so sorry, this picture photo is not so clear, so it is copied from website. Okay, so he's the director of Charlotte's Doug Stewart. He's just actually we have known him just now. Even thanks a lot for present, and thanks a lot. And it is really Doug Stewart and also Professor Desio, Professor Seidel is worth our thanks, a lot of thanks. We get so far we get a lot of advices, a lot of support from Doug Stewart. So I would like to use this chance to express our thanks to you. Thank you very much. So his research field is algorithmic geometry. We just see in the first number 4 Doug Stewart seminars. So the second speaker is Professor Pierre Casteran. And he just now gave a very nice talks about Coq. And actually, we are very, would like to thank him a lot. He really organized the first Shonan school. It starts from scratch because Doug Stewart don't have these things. We have a lot of summer schools, which is not small number, small class. So everything must be developed during the organization of the first workshop. Thank you very much, Professor Casteran. And the third is Professor Kawarabayashi. Currently is academic committee chair of NI Shonan meeting. And Professor Kawarabayashi contribute so much to the Shonan meetings. He made 3 firsts for Shonan meetings. He organized the first Shonan meetings, as I just mentioned in my slides. He made the first technical reports for that, gave a sample of how to write that kind of technical reports. And he published the first books. This is Communications of NI Shonan Meetings. Actually, the first book also published by him. So it really set a lot of examples, models for others to follow. Thanks. Thank you very much. So now the topic is back to the topic. Is the future of NI Shonan meetings. I would like to invite panelists to simply talk something about the visions and what NI Shonan meeting should be. So I'll perhaps first invite Professor Seidel to say a few words. So, or maybe this is, yeah.
Okay. So, I think I have to put this in context. I have to put this in context of modern technology and networking. When I arrived yesterday in Professor Hu's office, there was obviously a Skype meeting going on. And at some point there was this question, well, why should we go anywhere? Why don't we just sit in our offices and go into virtual meetings? And we don't have to travel, we don't waste time. Sounds like an interesting thing to do, and I'm sure there are some colleagues who even believe that this may be a good idea. I personally believe for some things it's a good idea, but you don't want to do this all the time. And so the question is really, how do you avoid this? What is the meeting landscape going to be in 10 years? We're having more and more and more conferences to the point of where it's not clear which conferences are bad, which conferences are bogus, and there are bogus conferences. So maybe the thing to do will be actually say, oh, we give you the chance to go to Shonan for 4 days, and actually we'll disconnect you from the internet, and you won't be distracted, and now you really have time to discuss, and you will actually enjoy that you're kind of disconnected from everything. Maybe this is the way to go. I doubt it a little bit, because if I walk the streets here, kind of every second person I walk by looks into some little rectangle, and you know, have their lives so intertwined with things that actually need the internet. It's maybe difficult to do, although it may be very interesting. So maybe this is something that will happen.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's really, so whether we should have a virtual meetings and have a face-to-face meetings, I think both of them have the advantages and disadvantages. And this kind of how to make it becomes a sort of synergy. I have to do something. I think for some of the topics, perhaps you still need such kind of face-to-face discussions. And for the disconnected with the world, yes, this is the problems, is the issues, and this is a good problems. We need to think how to deal with that. Yes. Okay. Yes. Thank you very much. So later we'll ask the questions from the audience. Okay. So first, let's ask the panelists to say a few words. So next, I would like to invite Professor Casteran to say a few words about your visions of湘南meetings or Dax meetings.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I would say that I was very happy to be in the first part of the first Shonan school. I think that there were only 3 schools organized, and I think I hope this will be more. There will be more occurrence of this kind of meeting, because of course schools are different from Shonan meetings because we have lectures, we have a lot of lab sessions too, and I think it's half lecture and half lab session. And we have also a lot of exchange between not only teachers and students, but with every interested researcher in the area. Yeah. So, okay, so I really hope that we will organize this kind of school, and we have to define what is a Shonan school, because we have not many experience about that.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So I also like to invite Professor Kawabashi to say a few words about his visions about. But this is more important because currently academic committee chair. Okay.
So my main area is basically discrete mathematics and combinatorial optimization graph theory, and then but I've also worked. So main conference will be Stockfox soda theory, but not only that, but also logic things, Rickson sausage, triple AI things, ICML, something like that I have published. Having said that, let me just say something about the current things and the next change I'd like to make a little bit. So first thing is the current situation, which is like each year we have like 15 to 25 workshops, and each of have like 25 to 30 people. And this is really nice because if you have only 25 to 30 people, and if you spend like 2 nights, then maybe you know everybody. And that's really the good side, reasonably good side. I think this is a little bit smaller than the Dagshu, because Dagshu had like 40 to 50 or something like that. A little bit, I don't quite remember. But
so it's actually a little more complicated because we have small meetings and we have large meetings.
Yes,
so the small meetings are about this side, and some meetings are 3 days, some are 5 days. We also have summer schools.
Oh, okay. But the typical one is like a 50, 40, 50, right? But I think that 25 to 30 is sort of the nice size. And we have like 15 to 25 each year. And this is 20 or 75 will be probably the best we can do because of the constraint of the Shonan Village. The Shonan Village would have some other stuff to be done, but they only give us like only half a year or something like that. So this is best we can do, and I don't think we can enlarge it in the future. And people from all over, for some reason, that the American people like Japan, many people like Japan. So it was very great. It was really good to have such people. And in fact, there are many repeaters, and some of you actually attend the Shonan workshop, and actually many people, and some workshop, more than half people actually come twice or more. So that's really great. Most of the workshops like more like specialized topics, not like a broad one, but like specialized, which is also nice. Many workshops are actually based on research, but let me just say something about the area of things. So if you look at computer science, it's probably best represented by the best conference. From my side, like Stock, Fox, Soda, and the program language, and POPO, PLDI, and so on. And once you go to like machine learning, NIPS, and ICML, and something like that, and triple AI. And then my impression is that not only Shonan, but also the Dagshu as well, the majority would be the top 2. Theory and the program language. But it's not like a coincidence that both the director of the Dagshu and Shonan are both from the theory community, because that's probably the majority. Maybe the program language is almost the same thing. But my impression is that if you look at machine learning, data mining, maybe AI and NLP, not so many things happening. And probably there is some reason, because theory in a program language is the best way is like to get the people together, and it's like a mathematics. So having a workshop at one places and a smaller number of people to run the proof or mathematical proof or mathematical algorithm, and that's a little bit different from the system. For system, you really have to implement it, and then it's probably not that good to have such a small workshop for the system people, because probably they really want to sort of advertise. That's why they really want to attend a big conference. And also the NIPS machine learning probably like that, because like NIPS, they attract like 5,000 people. And the best way they communicate is basically present the work to the whole audience. It's a different style. So I guess the point is that maybe for the majority we have like theory and program language. That's probably 2 major things. To make a little bit change, I want to say something like that. So summer school, definitely I would like to have a little bit. Maybe 1 school for each summer. And then also some specialized hot topic workshop. And this is sometimes it's hard to find something. So maybe as to take advantage of the academic chair, I can probably ask somebody who is doing like a hot work to get to have some smaller workshop. And then participants, I think it's really important to have young people, not only young people, but female. And maybe I want to push minority people as well, because this is really important to proceed the community. And third thing is it's a most specified topic. That's fine. That's really fine. But now I really want some work done there. So I really want to see some work done at the workshop or kicked off at the workshop and published there. And I really want to see that this work was started at the Shonan meeting, something like the acknowledgement of the paper in the best conference of the stock folks or Popol or something like that. That's really, I want to see this, because this is what the best part of the workshop should be. And last thing is that so in the previous slide, I said that the top two is probably so basically we get the workshop of the green part, but the majority is top two. But I want to involve some people in the machine learning or this part as well, because it's also good time for them to join us. Because, for example, the next IAI thinks it will be explainable AI, which actually means, for example, you know the deep learning, right? Everybody knows the deep learning, but unfortunately, almost nobody knows why it works quite well. So if people really want to see why it works, and the only way to explain it is basically on the theory or theory part of the basic research. And this kind of basic research, I think, is best to focus like Shonan or Dax here to proceed, because we don't really need a lot of people. We only have a few, 10 to 20 people to get together to proceed. So that's really I think that's really the thing that I really want to see here. So that's my plan. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So I found this slide is very interesting. So put a little bit why. Okay. Yes. Thank you very much. And first, I think I can have some comments from the panelists regarding this. If you have any things to. So this is one of the future work we're thinking about. Yeah.
So at Dagstuhl, we have spent a lot of time thinking on why there is this apparent slant towards theory. Right. It's not quite as pronounced at Dagstuhl because we have a lot of kind of, as I said, talked about paleography or computer science and architecture, computer science and archaeology. There are lots of things that happen, and we have seminars on this. Now, one thing is that it becomes more difficult to have a workshop if you have something that you don't want to share.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
So if you run experiments and experimental data are valuable and you can't really give them away, and then it becomes very difficult to go to the workshop, and some things you can talk about and other things you cannot talk about. And this just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Also, I must say there are topics where the formats that we have are just not appropriate. So but there are other programs. I mean, you look at MSRI in Berkeley or the Simons Institute, where they run a whole semester on a certain topic, and this may make more sense. Where you go to the Institute of Advanced Studies in Princeton, and they have people for years there thinking about something. That this is right. For some things is just better.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. It seems you want to.
Yeah, so you have some good point that, for example, Google dominated like CV or maybe NLP or something like that. But these researchers don't want to come to such a small conference and workshop to share the idea, because it is protected by the company or maybe the patent. So, but the two areas we show like this, that's probably not the area that dominated by Google, which actually means that many academias participate. So, so I don't know how to mix the academia and the industry.
Yeah, this is actually the big issues. The first advice is actually from the first symposium here, is that in Japan we have a lot of industry, very big companies. We could have more people from industry be involved. And we actually tried some efforts, but actually couldn't really succeed. Yes, you have some comments on that.
Yeah, I have some comments. So it turns out that we found that certainly 5 days, 5-day meetings are too long for somebody from industry, and I suppose even for 4 days it may be the case. So we have typically larger involvement from people from industry when there are shorter meetings.
Okay.
because I mean they just can't afford to get away from the company for that long. We do have some meetings with 50% participation from industry, so it is possible, but it depends on the area. If we talk about numbers, the following number may be interesting for you, that still now about half of our participants are first-comers. Are first-comers to Dagstuhl. So we certainly have colleagues who have been to Dagstuhl 20, 30, 40 times. Well, maybe not 40 times, but 30 times.
Not 40. Oh, 40.
There may be some, yes.
Possible. Yeah.
But I think it's very important to make sure that you keep new people coming, and that it doesn't become a closed shop insider thing that nobody can get into.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Any others? Okay. Yes.
I don't want to overestimate the power that we have. I mean, I very much see the problem of inflation, that there are too many papers, too many researchers. Who has the guts not to publish a paper? And sometimes maybe that's the proper thing to do. This is next to impossible to teach to students. Basically, changing the publication system, the biggest opponents to this are young colleagues, because if you change the publication system, then this endangers or changes their evaluation system. They don't know which way it's going to change. So all of the young colleagues are very much opposed to playing with this. If we heard the 3 Bs, the real big problems are not the top 5%. The big problems are the bottom 50%. And there we don't have any influence. So I see very, very few chances that Dagstuhl can change something there. I cannot talk for Shonan, but I suspect it may be similar.
Yeah, right. Okay, thanks. And I think it's almost the time. So I think this is Professor Kawabashi gave some nice summary of what we want ahead. And the summer school actually went for the Shonan school. At that time, we didn't call it summer school because we think winter is also fine. so that's it. But it is. We want to have some schools to educate. This small class of small class school with small class it looks quite interesting. And now I understand Dagstuhl also have summer school or has school. This is really great. Okay, so I think I want to close this panel sessions. But before that, I would like to invite each of the panelists to give one messages to Shonan meetings. Okay. So perhaps it's a bit difficult things. Okay.
I think Shonan has been doing wonderful work, and I hope it will continue to do so. I wish you very much that you'll find a little more peace in some form of permanent funding. In anything works. And somehow yesterday you showed me your pride in running something like this with very little budget. So what I don't wish you is that you get too much money that you can't have this pride anymore. Right. But if you get money, get a lot.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
So
thank
best
you
wishes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So me also, I wish the best to Shonan meetings and school. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right. Right. Okay, great. And finally, let's thank all our panelists for the very wonderful discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for attending the Shonan meeting 100 commemorative symposium to the very end up to now. And now we are closing the session, and we sincerely hope that the Shonan meeting will further contribute to the development, advancement of informatics. And thank you for attending the symposium again. Thank you.